Chosen one, I need you to sit with this for a second, because what just surfaced was never supposed to see daylight. Not yet. Maybe not ever. And the second it did, the room on the other side went completely silent. Not, oh interesting, silent. Oh no, silent. Because the one thing they spent years making sure nobody found, somebody finally found it. And now panic isn't a feeling over there. It's a full-blown scramble. You know exactly what I'm talking about, even if you've never said it out loud. That thing you buried so deep you almost convinced yourself it didn't matter anymore. That thing you assumed would just stay quiet forever, tucked somewhere nobody would think to look. It didn't stay quiet. It got found. And the people who were counting on it staying buried are currently finding out that buried and gone were never the same thing. Here's the part worth sitting with for a second. You didn't do anything different this week than you did last month. Nothing about your behavior changed. What changed is that the thing everyone assumed was permanently out of reach suddenly wasn't. That's not your instability showing. That's their assumption failing. In real time, on a schedule they never controlled. Before we go any further, Chosen One, hit that like button right now. Not as a favor to me, but because somebody scrolling past this exact video needs to know their buried thing is about to surface too. And subscribe if you haven't, because what happens next is the part they really don't want you to hear. Here's what nobody tells you about the thing you keep hidden. It doesn't disappear just because you stop mentioning it. It waits, quietly, patiently, sitting exactly where you left it, gathering weight instead of dust. They knew that too. That's why they worked so hard to make sure it stayed exactly where it was, unseen, unspoken, unconfirmed. Not because it was small, because it was the one piece of evidence that would blow up every story they'd been telling about you for years. Think about it. If it was nothing, they wouldn't have cared this much about keeping it hidden. You don't build a whole strategy around burying something that doesn't matter. You don't spend years managing the narrative around a detail nobody would ever ask about. The amount of effort they put into keeping this quiet is, itself, the confession. And now it's out. Not because you leaked it, not because you announced it. It surfaced on its own, at exactly the moment it was always going to, because things built on the truth have a habit of resurfacing, right when the lie built around them gets too heavy to hold up anymore. That's why panic is spreading right now, in rooms you'll never see. Not because they lost an argument, because they lost control of the one variable they thought they'd permanently contained. Notice what panic like that actually looks like from the inside. It isn't loud, it doesn't announce itself. It looks like sudden phone calls that go unanswered, like plans quietly rescheduled, like people who were confident yesterday suddenly needing time to think it over. That's not caution. That's damage control dressed up as patience. Chosen One, if you already know exactly what your version of the one thing is, I want you to drop the number 919 in the comments. Not as a comment, as a quiet confirmation. To yourself, and to every other Chosen One reading this, that you know something just shifted. Type it now. Then let's get into exactly what this means. They didn't destroy it, because destroying it would have meant admitting it existed in the first place. So instead, they did the next best thing. They let it sit, unopened, in a drawer nobody was supposed to check, assuming time would do the destroying for them. You might be wondering, if it was that dangerous to them, why not just get rid of it completely? Because the truth doesn't work like that. You can hide it. You can bury it under years of a different story, but you can't erase something that actually happened. There's no shredder for the truth. There's only postponement. Picture a sealed envelope passed quietly from hand to hand for years, everyone agreeing not to open it, everyone privately terrified of what happens the day someone finally does. That envelope isn't dangerous because of what's written inside. It's dangerous because of how long everyone pretended it wasn't there. And here's the part that really gets them. The longer something like that sits unopened, the more its opening feels like an event instead of a footnote. They didn't just lose a secret. They lost years of pretending the secret didn't exist. That's a much bigger loss than the thing itself. Notice something else about an envelope like that. Nobody keeps something sealed for years out of indifference. You keep something sealed that long because you already know exactly what it says, and you've built your entire comfort around nobody else finding out. The sealing was never protection. It was a confession-wearing tape and an address label. They told themselves it stopped transmitting a long time ago. No signal, no activity, nothing left to worry about. That assumption was comfortable. It was also wrong. Didn't part of you always suspect it was still running, quietly, somewhere underneath everything else? That feeling wasn't paranoia. It was accuracy. A frequency doesn't have to be loud to still be live. Sometimes it just sits below the noise floor, transmitting to exactly the one receiver tuned in closely enough to catch it. Until, eventually, the right receiver finds it, and suddenly what everyone assumed was dead static turns out to have been broadcasting the whole time. That's the part they never planned for. They assumed silence meant it had gone away. Silence just meant it was waiting for the right moment to be picked up again. A dead frequency doesn't need defending. Nobody bothers monitoring something they're convinced went quiet on its own. So they stopped watching that channel entirely, which is exactly how something can keep transmitting for years without a single person noticing. Right up until the moment somebody happens to be tuned in at exactly the right frequency, at exactly the right time. Zoom out for a second and look at how much this actually says about them. They didn't check, because checking meant admitting the possibility it was still active. Willful blindness only works until the one day someone else happens to be listening. They tore the page out. Clean removal, no evidence left behind. Or so they thought. What they didn't account for is that ink doesn't always stay on the page it's written on. Sometimes it presses through to the page underneath, faint but legible, if anyone ever bothers to hold it up to the light. You might ask, does it even matter now, this many pages later? It matters more now than it would have back then, because time doesn't erase an impression like that. It just makes the moment someone finally notices it hit harder. Somebody held a page up to the light, and there it was. Not the original, not even close to intact. Just enough of an outline to prove the missing page was real, and that someone had gone to real trouble to make it disappear. You don't go to that much trouble removing something that was never true. Think about the effort that goes into a clean removal like that. You have to notice the page exists. You have to decide it's dangerous enough to remove. You have to physically get rid of it, without anyone noticing the gap. That's not the behavior of someone protecting a small detail. That's the behavior of someone protecting the one page that changes everything else in the book. For years, there was exactly one person who knew the full picture and said absolutely nothing. Not out of loyalty to them, out of exhaustion mostly, and a quiet decision that it wasn't worth the fight yet. You may have wondered why nobody ever backed you up publicly, even when they clearly could have. It wasn't because they doubted you. It's because timing matters more than volume, and a witness who speaks too early gets discredited before anyone's ready to listen. Think of it like a dormant volcano everyone assumed had gone extinct, right up until the seismograph spiked without warning. The mountain didn't change. The pressure underneath it had simply been building the entire time, waiting for the one moment it could no longer be contained. That witness finally spoke, not loudly, just clearly enough, and that was all it took to shift everything. There's a strange kind of power in a quiet witness that a loud one never has. Nobody can accuse them of chasing attention, because they went years without saying a word. When someone like that finally opens their mouth, it doesn't read as an opinion, it reads as testimony. They assumed the room was empty of consequences. No cameras, no record, nothing that could ever be traced back and confirmed. That assumption is exactly why they got comfortable enough to be careless. Isn't it strange how the moments people are most careless in are always the ones they were most sure nobody was watching? That's not a coincidence. That's what happens when confidence outruns caution. Somewhere, quietly, something was recording the entire time. Not out of malice, just because that's what recordings do. They don't judge in the moment. They just wait, patiently, for someone to finally press play. And once someone does, there's no version of events left to argue about. There's only footage. That's the real fear underneath all of this. Not that something happened, because they always knew that part. The fear is that proof of it exists somewhere they don't control, sitting quietly, completely indifferent to the story they've spent years telling instead. A recording doesn't care how convincing the retelling has been since. It doesn't update itself to match a more comfortable version of events. It just sits there, exactly as accurate as the day it was made, waiting for someone to finally ask the right question. They changed everything else. New systems, new stories, new versions of events, repeated so often they started sounding true. But one thing got overlooked. One old password, one forgotten point of access, still quietly working, long after everyone assumed it had been shut down. You might wonder if something that old could really still matter. Old doesn't mean irrelevant. It just means nobody's been checking it lately, which is exactly why it still works. Somebody typed it in, mostly as a formality, fully expecting it to fail. It didn't fail. It opened the door straight back to everything they thought they'd sealed off for good. That's the danger of assuming something is finished just because you stop paying attention to it. They moved on to newer systems, newer stories, convinced the old access points had been sealed for good. But sealing something and forgetting to check on it are two very different things, and only one of them actually works. For years, it sat in a drawer as an unprocessed negative, an image nobody had actually seen yet, just a story about what it probably showed, repeated so many times it started passing for fact. You might ask why nobody developed it sooner if it was sitting right there the whole time, because as long as it stayed undeveloped, everyone got to keep believing whatever version served them best. Developing it meant giving up that comfort. Somebody finally did it anyway. And the image that came out didn't match the story everyone had been telling for years, not even close. That's the real reason this hits as hard as it does. It's not new information, it's the same old evidence, just finally visible. Undeveloped isn't the same as untrue. It just means nobody's had to face it yet. The moment it develops, every version of the story that depended on it staying blank stops working all at once. Here's the part that's actually spreading the panic right now, more than anything we've covered so far. What surfaced wasn't the entire picture. It was one piece, one page, one frequency, one negative, one password, enough to prove the rest exists, without proving what the rest actually says. And that's so much worse for them than if everything had come out at once. Because now they're not just dealing with what's confirmed. They're dealing with everything they don't know is still sitting somewhere, waiting for its own moment. You might be tempted to think this is the end of the story. It isn't. This was never the whole file. It was the first page of it. Think about how differently that changes the math for them. A finished story, even a damaging one, has an edge you can eventually see past. A single confirmed page from an unknown file has no edge at all. They're not calculating what already happened anymore. They're calculating everything they don't know is still sitting somewhere. And that kind of math never lands on comfortable. Chosen one, none of this happened by accident, and none of it happened because you forced it. It surfaced because things that are true don't need permission to resurface. They just need time, and time was never on their side to begin with. They spent years managing a story instead of dealing with the truth underneath it. That's an exhausting way to live, and it only works for as long as nobody looks too closely. Somebody finally looked closely. The wait for this moment wasn't wasted. It was the only way it could land the way it just did. Sudden, undeniable, and completely out of their control. And this is only the part they know about so far. Think about how much energy it takes to manage a story for years, instead of just letting the truth exist. Every conversation has to be steered. Every question has to be redirected. Every person who gets too close has to be quietly managed. That's not a strategy. That's a second full-time job, and it only has to fail once to undo everything it was built to protect. If this landed with you tonight, Chosen One, do 3 things before you go. Hit that like button. It tells the algorithm to put this in front of the next person whose one thing is about to surface too. Drop 919 in the comments one more time, so I know exactly how many of you felt this moment happen in real time. And subscribe if you're not already, because the rest of this file is still sitting out there, and when it surfaces, you're going to want to be here for it. If you know someone whose own reveal is coming, send them this one first. They'll understand why the moment they see it.